April 8th, 2016. A user known as Gribbly would make a post to r/GameDev Classifieds with the title of Need Artists for a VR Game, where he is looking for artists who can work on a game that has a stylized, somewhat cartoony art style. 1 month later, he'd make a post to r/Vive with the title of Looking for Testers for Rec Room. Now, do we have access to these early builds? Unfortunately not, but we do have access to a build called FirstEA, which stands for First Early Access, which was released on June 30th, 2016. And I thought it'd be fun to look back at the first ever Rec Room build and compare it to modern Rec Room. And I might even show off some unused stuff that the community has found as well. But first, we gotta revisit an old friend. Well, pal, your services are needed again. You might recognize my time machine from my video where I look back at unused Rec Center designs that Rec Room were working on back in 2018. It's been a while since I've used this, so I'm just hoping that still works. So step 1 of operating the time machine, setting our version. Now the version code for this one is luckily easy to remember since it's FirstEA. Step 2, you just enter. FirstEA. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, We're here, baby. So this is what the login experience was like for the first few Rec Room builds. It's very simplistic because there's no proper account creation system at this point in time. Your account is bound to your Steam account. So if you want to change your username, for example, you had to change your username on Steam. Now, we just can't stay in the title screen forever. Let's go to the locker room. So here we are in the locker room, not the rec center, the locker room. The first thing you may notice here is that the lighting is very washed out. Nothing really pops. Another thing you may notice just from looking around is that there's a lot of text explaining what everything is. Like, for example, I would have never guessed that these were vending machines. And others don't really need to exist, like for example, the one that says loft up here. Another thing you may have noticed is that a lot of the models are very simplistic. Like, for example, the bucket, even the radio, it's completely different. And oh my goodness, look at the GIF camera! There's also these TVs over here that show what other players are doing. These only lasted for one version until being removed. Now, one of the biggest parts of Rec Room is dressing your avatar, so let's go to the changing room to change your avatar's appearance. Now, you might be saying, wait, can't you just go to your dorm and change your avatar? Well, no, the dormer wasn't added until 1 month later in the moving in edition. Since there's no proper account system, that means there's no proper inventory or leveling system, which means you just have every item for free. So, let's go into the changing room to change your avatar. Even for being the first version of Rec Room, there's still a lot of items to choose from to dress your avatar. For example, glasses, even a visor, which takes off my hat, so I'm not wearing the visor. There's also some hairstyles to choose from. Like, for example, some of the iconic, more longer hairs. This is also where you change your hair color. We got a tan, a brown, a bright yellow, a red, and also a black. This is also where you could change your skin tone as well. There's also a few iconic shirts down here, and even some that aren't even in Rec Room today. Using these buttons suck, though, I have to say, because sometimes your hand just gets too close to a piece of clothing and you accidentally grab it. Some other things, like the wristbands, are just way too low to reach sometimes, so you gotta actually bend down. And then get the button. There we go. So, even for such a small collection, you could still make some good outfits for what you have. After making your avatar, it'd be time to join a game. So, how do you open your watch? Well, you don't look at your watch. You actually press a button on your controller. This is the first version of the watch menu, and it definitely has better performance than the current watch menu. For what this menu is, it gets the job done. You have your list of activities, your people tab, you can check notifications, you can even change settings like, for example, turning down music, sound effects, and even hiding and showing names. This is also where you mute your mic, and you can also moderate other people. Like, for example, I can mute my alt, I could block it so it's completely invisible, or I can even invite it to join my game. And as you can see, when someone invites you, you get a notification. So at launch, these are the only activities you had: paddleball, dodgeball, and disc golf. I'm gonna rapid fire through all three of these since there's like really nothing much to them. Paddleball, different lighting, different score counter, and the Jumbotron is here, and this is the only activity I have a Jumbotron as well. Dodgeball has some gift cameras, different lighting, nothing much to note here. Disc golf, different lighting, and has a shorter map with only 4 courses, a different score counter, and also a realistic mode. I'll come back to that one later. Now, on the surface, FirstEA doesn't really have much going for it. It's just a very basic version of Rec Room with like 4 activities, barely anything to do. Like, the models themselves look horrible. But when it comes to unused stuff, oh boy, there's a lot of unused stuff. Our journey starts all the way back at the login screen. Now, in the login screen, where you'd usually spawn in, you can see a table and a dartboard. Now, my guess for why this is here is it could have been used as a tutorial to teach players how to grab and throw objects. But either way, it's still cool that this is here. Next up, let's look at the locker room. There's a hidden version of the locker room model, which is just the model but with a wooden texture instead of a drywall one. For what it is though, it looks really cool. Next up, in both Paddleball and Dodgeball, there's an unused role selector that requires you to teleport into them to choose what team you are on. It's a cool concept, but the scoreboard does work way better. Also, in Dodgeball, there are 6 of these dummies that are, I guess, supposed to be used for practice. These are really cool, but sadly they were never released publicly. Disc Golf has one of the biggest changes in my opinion. Shocker, I know. The changes are so big that I even did my best to get cinematic shots of them. Here you go. That's right, Disc Golf used to look like this. RTX off, RTX on. Now looking back, the art style that Rec Room was described to have was a cartoony sports theme. This does not fit into it at all, but it's still really cool to look at. Now for the last few things that I want to look at, I have to go into screen mode. But wait, wasn't screen mode added in 2018? Well, you're correct. What we're actually using is a developer debug mode left in by mistake. This mode was used by the developer so they can quickly make a change and test it without putting on their VR headset. Though for some reason in FirstEA, they just never added a check to see if you're running the game from within Unity. Before we get to that though, if you're liking the video so far, make sure to press the like button and also get subscribed to see more old Rec Room videos. So now that future me is on screen mode, let's have a look at an even older locker room design. First thing that we notice, it's very small. Imagine if they kept this in the current version of Rec Room with the current player size. This is cool to look at, but thank God they changed it to be a bigger space. Next, how about look at an early version of Paddleball? I mean, there's not very much for me to say, it's just a very bare bones version of Paddleball. Next, what if I told you there's a completely unused activity in this build? No, it's not Punch Out, even though it's what's advertised here. It's actually horseshoes. Sadly, none of the game is functional in its state, but we can kind of see what they were going for. I feel like we didn't really miss out much with this one, but looking at it with historical eyes, it's really cool to look at. Overall, the first build of Rec Room is really cool to look at with a historical point of view. It's really cool to see what ideas they had at the time and how they evolved into the game that we have today. From a Wii Sports in VR game to a game where you can make anything. Also, fun fact, due to this game not really requiring Steam VR to run, you can run this game on Windows XP. I'm not joking. Now, granted, I was only able to get it working on a virtual machine, but it was still really cool for what it was. But, now I gotta get back to Modern Rec Room. Like and subscribe. I gotta go find my way back home.